Hello, it's Richard Pearce from FinextraTV, and delighted today to be joined by Anita De Horde. Anita is the co-founder and coordinator of the Finance for Biodiversity Foundation. Welcome.
Thank you so much for being here, and I want to start really great initiative that you're doing this in the beginning of the year, predictions with all kinds of experts and people, really an inspiration.
Well, we do it every year, but with this focus on sustainable finance, obviously it couldn't be a better time coming off the back of COP15, which just happened as we broke for Christmas. And a lot of people, I think, are still trying to understand what happened there. What was your involvement? Tell us about Finance for Biodiversity and your involvement at COP15.
Yes, sure. And thank you so much for inviting me and us. We're Finance for Biodiversity, a group of 126 now, financial institutions, investor-led, that signed the Finance for Biodiversity pledge, in which they commit to assess their impact and to report on it and set targets. So it's an ambitious group of financial institutions that really want to make progress on biodiversity and nature, which is a really new topic for the finance community. We've been involved in COP15 already 1.5 years in the organization that organized the COP, the Convention of Biological Diversity. Since 1.5 years, we've been looking at the text, because it was not one COP that the text was decided on. It was, it took multiple years to look at the text, and also in the end, the goals and targets that got adopted. And we've been involved, especially in the goals and targets that are referred to business and finance sector actions. So we've been doing that with a group of financial institutions. We've been attending all kinds of meetings in Nairobi, in Geneva, prior to COP15. And of course, we were also there at COP15 following the negotiations. And also, even for the first time in history, there was a finance chair created for us. So we could sit on the table and also did an opening plenary with our message that we really need policies on biodiversity and finance sector and businesses to stimulate business action.
Fantastic. And what was your takeaway? What was your impression of what was achieved, and what was your takeaway?
Well, our takeaway, we are very positive overall of the agreement. Very happy, and all of our points mainly got adopted that we found important. It's an ambitious agreement which touch upon all kinds of important biodiversity and nature issues, but also looking at implementation and mainstreaming, so that all actors, not only governments, but also other actors that have an impact on nature, will be involved. The ambition level is good. And we're also very happy that it will hopefully be implemented soon by governments, at least before the next COP in 2 years.
And that takes us beautifully on to our predictions for 2023 series, which we're here to talk about today. So if you think about what you've just done as a result of all that work over the years, what do you expect the finance industry and the tech industry to do to actually bring those targets to reality?
Yeah, well, it's good to take a little back what has been adopted. So what has been adopted is a little similar that has been adopted in the Paris Agreement in 2015. There was the alignment, a very broad concept of alignment of financial flows with climate. And now we have a similar references in Goal D, Target 14, on alignment of private and public financial flows, which will hopefully give momentum for the finance sector to get action, but also governments to implement regulatory measures and also policies to stimulate businesses and the finance sector to take action on assessing and monitoring their impact and dependencies on nature, but also disclosure. So one of the indicators which had all the governments that are adopted this agreement, 196, is they have to report on the number of companies reporting on disclosures and risks, dependencies and impacts on biodiversity. So that means it's no longer voluntarily action on nature by businesses, and it's really serious business. So that means that financial institutions, businesses need to get started with measuring their dependencies and impacts, and also start acting on these. And not only via their own companies, scope 1, but throughout their operations, supply and value chains, and also their portfolios. So yeah, lots to do for the finance community, for businesses to really get their heads around it. How are we doing this? And really think through it. How is their portfolio, their value chain affecting nature?
Right. So your predictions are then that businesses are going to have to get organized. They're going to have to come up with plans. They're going to have to baseline their impact.
Yep.
They have to make disclosures and so forth. What do you think is the role for the tech industry in enabling this? Because I think a lot of businesses and financial industry will struggle, won't they, to get a grip of this space?
Yes, I agree with you. They will struggle because it's very complex. Biodiversity is way more complex than CO2 emissions, than climate change. And we have drivers of loss, pressures, realms, biomes, ecosystem services, and it's also very location based. So the tech industry is very welcoming to think along how to work with big data on the complexity of biodiversity topics and elements, and how to locate them, and to help financial institutions, businesses to locate these positions and have data ready. There are already measurement approaches out there, but I expect for 2023 and 2024 that there will be more tools available, and that hopefully fintech organizations will get their heads around how to make this more achievable for finance institutions to use them. And there is a lot of data on biodiversity, but how can they use it in such a way they can look at their portfolios, finance sector, and to really see the risks, sectors that are exposed to, and the companies that they invest in.
And we spoke with a few other colleagues that have been to COP15, for organizations that might feel a bit overwhelmed by this, would you say that they can use a lot of the muscles, if you like, that they've learned for carbon to understand, exposures and sectors, and just actually it doesn't mean a complete new discipline, that there is actually a lot of work that's been achieved already, and obviously the alignment of TCFD and TNFD has tried to adopt that approach. What's your view on that?
Yes, I agree with that. You can use the infrastructure, so the thinking of climate, and incorporate nature in this. However, you have a little bit more difficulty on all the elements. So and also it's so location based. So you CO2 emissions, you can add up, and it's not in location, so specific location based centered. So that's a little different. But the infrastructure, the thinking has already been done by a lot of stakeholders, businesses, finance institutions on climate change. So hopefully this will go faster than we had after the Paris Agreement. We're now 7 years later, or 8 years later, and now it's sort of becoming mainstreaming, setting targets on net zero, measure the CO2 emissions, footprinting, but this, hopefully biodiversity and nature footprinting, impact assessments will take less time than 7 years, and that's needed to reverse nature loss, because one of the overarching goals of the global biodiversity framework is reversing nature loss before 2030. So we have 7 years to do it, and not only to measure it, but also to take action.
To take action. Well, it's two sides of the same coin, isn't it? Really, climate and nature, and nature-based solutions should be a part of people's carbon plans as well. Anita, we don't have time to go much further, but I really appreciate your time today. Thanks for joining us. And
thank you so much.
Look forward to speaking to you again, hopefully with some updates soon.
Great. Thank you for being here, and good luck, Richard.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.